Good morning and welcome to the 2026 European Open Classic Powerlifting Championships here in St. Julian's, Malta. I am Amelia Potter and today I'm joined by Jason Clark, one and only, a little far from home here. We've got the New Zealand head coach here at the European Championships. Hello, Jason.
Morning, Amelia. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm glad to be here and I'm glad that you're joining me with a bit of insight from, a coaching perspective here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this morning's session and yeah, be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big day for the 69s and the 93s. By far, I think one of our biggest two weight classes with 3 flights across the day. So these will be the C groups. So we'll have 6 69s and we'll have 8 93s coming up. So throughout the day, we'll continue to see, as you'll see the medals on the screen come up and then fighting for it. That's subject to change as I said, we've got the B group this afternoon, and this evening on Eurosport, we have the A group.
Yeah, big day for the 69s and 93s. First session kicking is just about to kick off, so see how the first one of the day goes.
And starting us off strong, we have Kristina Vakova from Czechia. Personal best of 135, as you can see here. We're opening just 2.5 kilos below that here with 132.5, and with 8 years of competitive experience, that's a pretty impressive place to be starting your opening squats, Jason.
Not too bad at all. We'll see how it goes first, but you would assume training's been going pretty well.
Yeah, you certainly hope so. Different nations and coaching teams tend to have different techniques. Sometimes some coaching teams like to open a little higher to that top end and slowly edge it up, and we see others make slightly larger jumps. So let's see what Team Czechia have on the board today. Kristina.
Looked pretty comfortable to me.
And she's on the board with it. 3 white lights, a good lift, and you can only imagine a new competition best on that second attempt.
Yeah, I think you'd expect it. It's pretty comfortable opener, so see what she puts on there. Probably 7.5 to 10 more, I would think.
Osrine Janunuket from Lithuania, 135 kilos on the bar. Now this is 7.5 kilos over her personal best.
Another pretty comfortable looking open there for Lithuania. 3 white lights.
That's really what we want to see from an opening attempt. As a coach, Jason, what do you hope to see or have an athlete present from an opening attempt?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the experience level of the lifter, but I do think you would expect someone in a C flight such as this who's here just to get a bit more experience and build the total, for it to be something comfortable, give yourself plenty of room to build and just take some confidence away. It can be pretty jarring experience doing a European championship, any sort of regional championship, so you'd be looking to build the total, and I wouldn't expect anything too aggressive straight off the bat, but hey, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see how is the case for Laura Chikuti Dimech from Malta here on home soil, opening on 140. Still a junior here. Her last year is 23 years old.
Yeah, looks pretty good.
Two to one, a good lift. She does get a deck call there on the far side, referee. So here on the replay is the side she gets that white light from. And I think on that side it seems okay to me.
Yeah, it looks good to me, but we don't have the view that the left-hand ref has, so jury is looking at it, but I think they're pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, not all lifters and very few are even in terms of where they can get their hips down in terms of depth.
Yeah, exactly. We are asymmetrical beings, unfortunately. So sometimes one hip's going to sit a little bit higher than the other.
Tanya Kohonen from Finland, 145. A bit of a tricky opener, but maybe some nerves she's shaking off there.
Yeah, 3 whites in the end, but a little bit shaky. But she managed to come up very well. Tip forward perhaps a little bit. We'll see here on the replay.
I think we can see where the sticking point will come in as it gets a little bit heavier, but sometimes that opening attempt is just hard to get in for a plethora of different reasons.
All right, now we have our penultimate opener, Amelia's favourite word.
It is my favourite word. Katya Kurtsalava from Georgia, 160 kilos. A 10 kilo personal best, and she wasn't messing around. She was on and getting that squat done.
3 white lights. Interesting here, Amelia, because we're seeing a lot of personal bests on the openers, and you would expect to see like, okay, maybe these are newer lifters, but the Georgian lifter just then, 11 years competing. So this is quite an interesting scenario going on.
I've seen a few lifters like that, there's championships with 10, 11 years of experience coming on and, flying through those numbers.
Must be nice.
We have Caroline Skovlind from Denmark, 167.5, leading this C group, opening 2.5 kilos below personal best. Again, another lifter, 7 years competitive experience, opening so close to that best. And making it look like that.
That is a lovely opener there from Denmark. All right, we'll come back to the second round, back to Czechia with Christina.
Yeah, and everybody on the board now, so a little bit of the pressure off as they know they can move forward, add some kilos, and really no technical issues from that.
No, I think it was a good round of openers as Christina comes out for that 7.5 kilo jump that we spoke about that might happen. So
yeah, absolutely. As you said, 140 in the bar. This will be a 5 kilo personal best for Kristina Vakova from Czechia. Very strong looking squat. She sticks with it really nicely.
Yeah, there's still a bit of room in the tank there for Christina. I would think at least 5 more.
Yeah, I think depending on how conservative they want to be, I think 5 kilos seems like a good bet, but if they just want to secure it for sure, 2.5.
Yeah, I think Team Czechia has been pretty well represented this championships. A lot of Czech lifters. The coaching there has been really on point, which has been cool to watch, to be honest.
Osrin Janulakate from Lithuania, 142.5, a 7.5 kilo jump here. Already opened on a PB, so only up from there.
Yeah, a little bit of work, but should be pretty good lift. 3 white lights. I think the opener looked somewhat similar, so would expect to kind of see a little bit of stick at the top for the third, but I think there's more room to add a bit of weight.
And some lifters are like that. Some lifters have all 3 attempts looking fairly similar, and the drop-off is just pretty quick. Lara Chikuti Dimech from Malta taking a 10 kilo jump here to 150. $10 kilos from here on out, I think, is the jump that all lifters in the remaining of the flights made. A lot more work there on her second, but it looks good from here, and it is 3 white lights. Where do you say Team Malta should be going from there, Jason?
Well, Laura's got a bit of support here, being in her hometown. So hopefully, I think, I mean personally I'd be taking 2.5, but we'll see if they want to take the more aggressive approach and how well they know their lifter as well. I thought they're going to take an extra 5. I think the Maltese attempt selection has been interesting this championships. They tend to err on the side of being a little bit more aggressive.
And you know, in that case, it's one of those big risk, big rewards. But when they get it, they get it.
Yeah, exactly. So if it pays off, it pays off.
155 kilos now for Tanja Kohonen from Finland. 10 kilo jump here. And I think she was just maybe a little nervous on that opening attempt, because actually altogether that relatively the same speed, but I think a lot smoother.
Yeah, I agree, Amelia. I think it was a lot smoother than the first one. There wasn't any tipping forward or anything, so I'm sure she'll be much happier with that. And it's an interesting choice, you know, going +10 on that opener, given that, you know, maybe didn't move as well as you would expect an opener to, but obviously they know their lifter, they understand the situation, and to see that, probably have a chat with the lifter about it, and then still put 10 on, I think is a wise move from the Finnish team.
Katja Kurtsalaba from Georgia, 170. Similar as before, she's not messing around. She's getting that squat command as quickly as possible and squatting just the same.
Yeah, beautiful, really. Just drop and go, I think.
She does not want to be on that platform for long. She's like, getting the job done as quickly as possible, getting those lights, and I'm off.
Yeah, beautiful squat leverages here as well, which makes for the capacity to be able to do that.
Caroline Skovlind from Denmark taking 10 kilo jump to 177.5 and coming into this with a personal best of 170. Already here on a second attempt, looking for a 7.5 kilo personal best. And I think based out of the 6 lifters we have here, I think the 10 kilo jump was the most justified based off her opener.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think this is a wise decision, but we'll see what unfolds here.
Yeah, nods as it stands up. She knows that's a good lift.
Yeah, very comfortable second attempt. I'm quite intrigued to see where she goes.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with 7.5 on top of that, I've got to say.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you always get a little bit more cautious when you get close to that top end. Sometimes you see a second attempt, you look at it and you go, oh, I wish I had a little bit more information than that. But, you know, at this point, again, it comes down to knowing the lifter and knowing what they've done in the past and how their bar speeds progress as load goes on the bar. But I think personally, yeah, 7.5 is probably the right call, and that's what they've put in 185 for her final attempt there, so we'll see how that goes.
And we move into the third and final round for these 69 kilo ladies. Kristina Vakova from Czechia, 145 for a new personal best. Yeah, opting for that full 5 kilos here. I think it's definitely there. It might be top end, but well within her reach if she can fight through it. Wow, and she can.
Yeah, exactly as you called it, Amelia. The referees agree. Beautiful third attempt. That's pretty much how you want a third to go, right? You can walk away knowing you did close to the limit, but you don't want to completely gas yourself out either.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was difficult, but she by no means emptied the tank.
Yeah, and I think, as we spoke about before, a lot of these lifters are hitting personal best, so sometimes you don't need to get too greedy, and I think that was exactly what they did there, and it was a good call by the Czech team.
And same here for Ozreen Janulikate from Lithuania, looking for a 5 kilo personal best and jump here with 147.5. Now, what do you think happened there, Jason?
I think, to be honest, it was just a little bit too much on the bar. I think they took a 5 kilo jump. Her last one was close to the limit. She has an interesting sticking point. It's very high up, but she also is a very upright position, which sometimes can cause that. So I think it's just a little bit too much on the day, unfortunately. I don't think she did anything wrong. It's okay, that happens sometimes.
And fired up with the support of the home crowd. Laura Chakuti Dimet from Malta, 155. Just half a kilo below her personal best and what I imagine to be a Maltese squat record.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this one goes. Second attempt was a little bit on the tougher side, and they opted for 5 anyway. As we spoke about, Maltese coaches tend to back their lifters, so let's see how this one goes. Yeah, unfortunately not there today for Laura. Valiant effort though, and nice to see the home crowd getting behind her anyway. It's been pretty good support for the Maltese lifters this week so far, hasn't it, Amelia?
Yeah, absolutely, which is great to see. Not too far to come. I think it's about 40 minutes from one side of the island to the other, so definitely worth the trip.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been a really interesting progression of the Maltese Powerlifting Federation. I mean, I remember the first time we came here, well, the first time I came here at
3
least
years
in,
ago,
in 2023. I think since then we've seen like a really big boom in their federation, and just like the amazing competitions that they've put on has obviously drawn a lot of people to the sport, which is it's been really cool to see.
Tanja Kohonen from Finland, 162.5, 7.5 kilo jump here. I mean, her opener was a little sticky and she made the 10 kilo jump look comfortable, so with the second one looking smoother, 7.5 doesn't seem too out of pocket.
Yeah, just a little bit too much again, I think. Again, don't know if she actually did anything wrong with it. I think it was just unfortunately like a little bit too much. Bit of an interesting squat series for the Finnish team there.
Yeah, she's one of those lifters that's quite hard to read because of that 10 kilo jump was unexpected, I think, to move that well, that perhaps got a little overzealous.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe they read a little bit too much into that, but I'd say, you got to make a decision within a minute, and they opted for the slightly heavier one, and unfortunately it didn't quite end up the way they wanted to. But very intrigued to see how this Georgian lifter goes here.
Yeah.
We know she's going to go quickly.
Katja Kutsalava, 177.5. And look at that fight. That is what we wanted to see.
Absolutely beautiful third attempt. And she's happy about it as well.
Yeah, really phenomenal effort. The longest she spent on the platform, and that was only because the squat took a little bit longer.
Yeah. She's just like beautiful leverages for squatting, and you can see that in the way that she's able to maintain that position even as the weight starts to give a bit of resistance at the top there.
And our final squatter in this flight, we have Caroline Skovlin from Denmark, 185, taking that 7.5 kilo jump we thought was justified, and let's hope we're right here. She's been squatting beautifully so far today, and if she gets this, walking away with a huge personal best of 15 kilos, I think. Yeah.
It'd be 7.5, I think, based on unless that's changed.
Yeah, no, she came in with a personal best of 170, so
Okay.
this will be a huge PB. Wow, look at that.
Oh, beautiful third attempt again. I think all day for Team Denmark, they're just perfect execution, really high standards, and honestly just a great display of squatting.
And I honestly think by the end of the day, I wouldn't be too surprised if she ends up a lot higher up the nominated totals than she is.
Yeah, I think she's actually poised quite well to end up positioning good if she continues to perform in the way that she has been.
And we move straight through to the men's 93C group with Aridas Klimka from Lithuania, 230 on the bar. Again, 11 years competitive experience, just 10 kilos below his best.
Yeah, it's a little bit shaky, but I think it should be okay. 2-1. Just a red light there from the head judge, suggesting that they weren't happy with the depths. We'll see what the replay looks like. This is what the jury will be looking at as well. Looks pretty good to me. What do you think, Amelia?
Yeah, I usually, and I say usually very hesitantly, when there's a depth call from the centre and not from the sides, usually the lifter is in an okay position.
Yeah, I think often we won't see that overturned, but you never know. It's hard to say. We all have different views. All the refs all have different views, so you never know what they're quite seeing there, and judges might agree with it.
Gabriel Vicek from Croatia, 235 on the bar. Just fresh out the juniors at 24 years old.
Pretty smooth opener.
And 3 white lights, a good lift. You'll see an array of styles of squat, both in their form and also their speed. This is a really good example of somebody who controls the bar the whole way, so it might look slower, but actually super strong.
Yeah, I think he has a very smooth squat. You know, it's not always just about speed, but you can tell there's not much resistance against the bar, and sometimes people just don't necessarily want to be as explosive for whatever reason, and you can't always just purely take in bar speed. Sometimes there are other factors that you want to consider when you're thinking about where your top end might be for the day.
Bastien Jordes from Belgium, 235 on the bar. Still a junior, 20 years old. Lovely, easy opener there for Bastien.
Beautiful. Yeah, is the youngest lifter in this session for the 93s. As we spoke about prior, this is the C group, so we actually have 2 other groups of 93 lifters in session 2 and the session 3 today.
Ian Pace from Malta, 240 on the bar. Like you said, a really good showing from the Maltese team here. I think they've got somebody in every weight class, or at least a full team.
I think that was a pretty good opener, in my opinion. Very comfortable. I would expect to see, like, based on what we spoke about prior and what we've seen with the Maltese team thus far, probably a decent jump there.
Yeah, and then I think the 93 kilo class is really interesting for that, because it's that high middle weight class where the jumps can really range from, it's a 7.5 kilo jump to, now this person's making a 20 kilo jump, and both can be justifiable.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. It comes down to a lot of factors, personal preference, what the lifter kind of also feels is adequate in order to get to that top end. It's not like necessarily one is better than the other, right? It's just different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely, and it just makes it, on an outsider's perspective, a little harder to make those guesses. Rudy starts now from Slovenia, 242.5. Really tidy looking opener for Rudy. Let's get a depth call from that far side referee. So, the depth call on the side is a little more worrying, but this is the side he gets the white from, and as Jason rightly said earlier, we're not symmetrical beings.
Yeah, I think it was close, but the jury seemed to be looking at it, but not overly concerned about it either. I think that one will stand. It was a comfortable opener, and I think, if I'm in that situation as a coach, I'm probably wanting to ask the lifter just to give me a little bit more in the second attempt to make it slightly more convincing. Nothing too much, because obviously he was given the lift, but you don't want to be looked at too closely the second time after getting one read the first time.
Jürgen Dahle from Malta, 242.5. Three wide lights, a good lift.
Yeah, another comfortable opener from the other Maltese lifter in this session.
245 kilos for him. And the bar is loaded for Rafael Betzis.
And our penultimate opening attempt, we have Rafael Betzis from Greece, 245 kilos.
comfortable opener.
Yeah, the exact word I would use for that. It didn't offer him too much resistance really at all.
We haven't seen too much representation from the Greek team yet, so it's nice to see them out here in this session.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously had a Greek lifter earlier in the week fighting for a podium position, but otherwise a very small handful.
And the bar is loaded for Matej, representing Slovenia.
Matej Grilc from Slovenia, 245 kilos, 20 kilos under his best here.
Matej, coached there by Urban Mur, head of the Slovenian Powerlifting Federation. What do you think about that one, Amelia?
It offered some resistance there, particularly since it's 20 kilos below his personal best, but it looked strong enough for an opening attempt. And just, again, it's one of those questions of what kind of jump does this lifter make?
Yeah, where do you go from there, right? You'd expect a lot of the people in these sort of weight ranges to take about 10 to 17, I would say. I think we've seen a bit of that. 15 is probably the most popular jump in this sort of weight range, which seems to be on brand for what we're going to see in these second attempts.
Iridas Klimka from Lithuania, 240 kilos, a 10 kilo jump to match his personal best.
Yeah, comfortable again for Team Lithuania. Honestly, quite similar to the opener. That was, yeah, I think that was pretty comfortable. I think there's plenty of room to add to that one. The old, the hair there gives a little bit of shake, which maybe gives off a bit more exertion than we're actually observing.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should keep our eye on for hair.
That's how you choose his increases, based off how much his hair is shaking.
Gabriel Visek from Croatia, 245, 10 kilo jump here, landing him 10 kilos of his personal best. Pretty steady second attempt. I don't think so different from that opener.
Pretty steady, I would agree, Amelia. 3 white lights as well, so I'm sure they'll be looking at a little bit more to that one. I'm assuming we'll see a lot of 5 to 10 kilo jumps from second to third, given the weights that these strong young lads are lifting.
Bastian Georges from Belgium taking a 15 kilo jump, landing him 5 below his personal best. As we mentioned, the last time the youngest of this flight by about 4 years.
Yeah, very young. To be born in 2006 must be nice.
Like, I couldn't imagine.
Me neither. We'll see how it goes, eh? See how this youthful exuberance gets him with this 250 kilo squat.
Yeah, really nice second attempt, Bastian.
Yeah, I think this is another one of these attempts where we look at it and we go, ooh, okay, well, like, do we have the information to know where the top end is? I guess, like, another consideration that comes to my mind there with Bastian is, you know, he's very young and this is an open championships. He's in the C fly. I'm wondering if they're just looking to build his total and give him that international experience.
Yeah, and the silver lining for a lot of these athletes in the C group is the pressure really is off, and it just allows them to push the best state they can have possible. And if that then in the future pushes them to get into a higher nominated total, then that's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly.
Rudy Start, Slovenia, 252.5, a 10 kilo jump.
Yeah, pretty comfortable second attempt there. I think that was honestly quite similar to his opening attempt. We seem to have, we've got 2 Slovenian lifters and 2 Maltese lifters in this fight, which is quite interesting. Doubling up on some countries.
And that was a 10 kilo jump for Stark, so perhaps a 5, 7.5, or for that third. I wouldn't imagine an equal jump.
Yeah, I would expect 7.5, I think, based on what we saw there. But, you know, if you want to leave a bit of gas in the tank, maybe 5.
Rafael Best is from Greece, 257.5, a 12.5 kilo jump. Just 5 kilos of his personal best here.
Little bit of work, but I think the referees will be happy with those standards. It's making sure of it. Going to the undeniable standard, as I like to refer to it as. So it's always nice to see these lifters holding that high standard there. But well, look, it'll be interesting to see where he goes after that one.
The bar is loaded for you again. Hey, you can come on.
Eugen Daly from Malta, 257.5, looking for a 15 kilo jump and leaving him just shy of his personal best, 260 here in his second attempt.
Yeah, back-to-back Maltese lifters, both going for 257.5. It makes you wonder what sort of competition they've had in the past at local and national championships.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little scrappy, but actually a really nice second attempt.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a little bit wonky on the downwards phase, but he just stood up with it really well, I guess. Sometimes you're just strong enough.
And the bar is loaded for Ian. Hey,
Ian Pace now from Malta, 257.5, a 17.5 kilo jump.
Yeah, a little bit more aggressive on the jump from Ian here, but his opener was extremely fast, so a jump like this doesn't exactly surprise me.
Yeah, 257.5, very popular second attempt with 50% of the flight taking it.
That's what all the cool kids are doing.
Apparently. Almost comes to a dead stop there in the middle, but manages to get it going again without the bar dipping.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting second attempt there. My bias says that like that 17.5 kilo jump, it can be quite jarring, and sometimes even if you are strong enough, like the technical aspect of it can get to you because it is such a different weight from 240 to 257.5. Like clearly the strength is where he just had a little bit of a bobble in the middle.
Yeah.
But you know, if this is something that you practice, then he should be fine with it.
That's the thing with a jump of that size. You can definitely notice that increase in weight and that difference, and sometimes that can catch you off guard. Matej Gilc from Slovenia, 257.5, 12.5 kilo jump. And our final second attempt before we move through to the third and final round of squats here in the 93s. Good, and it is 3 white lights. Not so many lifters opt to look in that downward position when they squat. Jason, can you tell me a bit about that?
That's exactly what I was just about to mention. It's an interesting thing because I think some lifters like to not have their head up too much and be in too much of an extended position. However, often you'll see when there's a fight in the lift that they will throw their head up, and sometimes that can throw you off as well. Not to throw a New Zealand reference in there, but someone who's very notable in that squat is Karlina Tongatea. She will look down, and then as there's a bit of a fight that comes into play, she'll throw her head up. So I'm interested to see whether that happens on his third attempt.
And we head into the third attempts now. Aridas Klimka, 250. A huge personal best, but it's just a bit too much of a jump going that equal 10 today.
Yeah, I did think 10 was a little bit ambitious. He looked a bit apprehensive on the descent as well, which I don't think helped too much. But hey, still good to walk away with 240.
Yeah, and it's very easy from our cushy box up here to pass judgment. Hindsight is 2020, but like you said, you've got 1 minute to make that decision.
Yeah, and I think an interesting consideration for this session is it's going to be short. We have 6 female lifters in the under 69s, and then we've only got 8 here in the 93s, so that could be a factor. Some people it actually could be advantageous, others not so much. So we'll see how they respond. I actually thought the ladies did great in that respect in the first flight.
Gabriel Visek, Croatia, 255, a match personal best. And this time round, good work of an equal 10 kilo jump.
Yeah, I think that was beautiful, to be honest. Kind of saw a very consistent style of squatting with Czechia there, Croatia. Just smooth the whole way through, and we spoke about his opener wasn't exactly the fastest, but it was very smooth, and often that means sometimes even a bit more than the speed itself.
Rudy Starch, Slovenia, 260 on the bar, 7.5 kilo jump.
Pretty smooth attempt. Unfortunately, just a little bit close there on the depth. 2-1.
Yeah, coach goes to the jury. We'll have a look here in the replay. Bearing in mind this is the side he actually gets the lift from. Gets that white light.
The jury is looking at it very closely.
Yeah, but they say it's just a bit too high today.
It's like the coach has been waved away, unfortunately, there for Team Slovenia. It was very close.
And that does happen, when you're at that top end and maybe some of the nerves.
Okay, we've got a 15 kilo jump here for Belgium. What do you think about that?
But we'll find out. His squat's definitely been moving some of the quickest. He, has a high rate of progression, 20 years old, 4 years competing. 15 kilo jump first to second for Bastian Jordes, and a 15 kilo jump from second to third to 265, which would also be a 10 kilo personal best. So let's see if that was justified here. And it seems to be with room left to spare.
That was very, very beautiful squat. Kind of makes you wonder why open so light, but hey, it worked well, and there's plenty of room to continue to progress that. Like we spoke about before, might just be taking it slightly easier given that he is very young. Yeah,
and weirdly enough, didn't seem too pleased with it coming off with that big personal best, so perhaps he knew he had a little bit more too.
Young ambition.
Rafael Bestis from Greece, 265. This is beef weight. 2.5 kilo personal best. 7.5 kilo jump from his second. 265. Much like 257.5, half of the lifters looking to take this in their final attempt.
Yeah, just a little bit unfortunate there. I think it does make you think, went for the 2.5 kilo PB. Sometimes that can be very alluring. It can skew your attempt selection based on what you want necessarily, maybe not what's there, but hey.
Yeah, and the thing is, in a C group, they're not vying for titles or medals in most cases, so if that's what he came here for today, then there probably wasn't a world where he wasn't going to try it.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you have your goal set up for the competition. If that's one of them, then if the information's good enough to allow for it, then have a dig.
Yeah. Yugen Dali from Malta, 265, a 7.5 kilo jump for a 5 kilo personal best, and the coach looking a bit nervous there himself. Lifter looking a little bit more confident, which is the way round I'd rather see it. And that would be why he had the confidence.
Beautiful. Maltese lifter, the Maltese coach is very excited, so much so that he lost his attempt cards.
Well, he won't need them for at least 45 minutes, so.
That's a very good point.
Now, Ian Pace, 265 for a 2.5 kilo personal best. Like you said, an illustrious number to chase. It is a 7.5 kilo jump from his second. Same coach.
See if he can match his Maltese counterpart.
Absolutely, energy a little bit higher here with Ian.
A little bit of a bobble in the second, so see if he can rectify that.
There we go, much smoother than the second.
Yeah, I feel justified in a way in what we spoke about with regards to those big jumps being a little bit jarring, and I feel like that was quite visible in the second attempt, so the more conservative 7.5 kilo jump in the third I think was really smart, and I mean, look at that beautiful attempt, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's better to move forward with confidence that you hit a good third than making a big jump, risking it, and moving into bench, you know, shaking it a little bit. Now the clock is running down from Matej Grujic from Slovenia, and here he comes, a 267.5, a 10 kilo jump, and another lifter looking for a 2.5 kilo personal best to cap off this C group with the heaviest squat if he gets this. And on prognosis, he is well in the lead of the C group by near 40 kilos. Head stays down.
Yeah. Beautiful attempt.
It's a good lift. Also, it's very impressive, like you said, to not let that head shoot up when you start fighting through it.
Yeah, and he was quite shaky through the ascent there, but he just did a great job of maintaining position. Everything held together well, and honestly, a very good attempt selection from Urban.
And that concludes the squat portion of this morning's session. These numbers subject to change as we have the B and the A group through later today. So do stick around. We're going to head into a 10-minute break before bench press. We'll catch you there. And welcome back to the 2026 European Open Classic Powerlifting Championships here in St. Julian's, Malta. We are rejoining you here for the bench press of the 69 and 93 C group. I am Amelia Potter, rejoined by Jason Clark. And good morning, Jason. That was a pretty good start to the C group.
Yeah, kia ora, Amelia. I think, although it is a bit of a shorter session with 6 in the first flight, 8 in the second flight, we saw a lot of made attempts, and yeah, I think everyone seems to be doing pretty well thus far. I'm quite intrigued to see how the bench press goes, and there's a few lifters in here that I think might be a bit more competitive with the B flight, potentially even the A flight.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think definitely the Danish and Georgian lifter could be well up in that top half of lifters by the end of the day. Austrian Janu Klikate from Lithuania, 65. 5 kilos above her personal best. And that's one of the things that you really worry about when you open above your personal best. And I'm hoping that was more of a technical issue than a strength issue. Let's have a look at that again, Jason. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, it looks to me like she potentially just pressed the weight a little bit out in front of her. These lifters are warming up on different bench presses out the back, so sometimes there can be a little bit of an adjustment going from the warm-up room onto the platform.
Tanya Kohonen from Finland, 70 kilos, 2.5 kilos below her personal best, and she's just this year an M1 lifter, but also it's her first year competing, so, you know, still looking at those newbie gains.
Yeah, just another sign that the sport is for anyone.
Bit of a tough opener there for Kohonen.
Yeah, 3 white lights, but again, not exactly what you would expect to see from a bench opener. I think often in the bench press, we tend to see the easiest openers. Can be a little bit hard at these loads because sometimes the lifters will just opt to take a 2.5 jump.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't continue on here. Katja Kurtzlava from Georgia so far been lifting really well in the squat session. So 70 kilos as an oper, 5 kilos below her personal best.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit more in line with what we would expect to see from an opener.
Yeah, it looked very strong. I think I'd still want to see an opener move a little bit faster, but in terms of the openers we've seen so far, I think certainly the steadiest of the lot.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do think, you know, like you said, there's an adjustment with how they feel on the pad and getting that opener out of the way. 72.5 for Kristina Vakova from Czechia. 5 kilos below her best.
Yeah, a lot of very similar weights on the openers here. Expect to see this bench press series go pretty quickly, which is not always a bad thing when it comes to bench press.
And that's much more of how I'd like to see an opening attempt move, with the exception of that red light for elbow depth in the middle. So if we have a look at that from that angle, Jason, and perhaps you can give us some insight.
Yeah, that was my first thought too. Just here we're looking to see whether the elbows are lower than the shoulder joint. It looks actually good to me from that angle, and I think the jury seems to agree, but I can definitely see what the head ref was looking at there, because I did have my apprehensions around it as well. But upon review, looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. 82.5 kilos for Laura Cercuti Demech from Malta, 2.5 kilos below her personal best.
Signs of "Let's go Laura" in the crowd, so a bit of home field advantage here for her. As you can see.
Pretty steady opening attempt there for Laura, and a good lift.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the smoothest, well, the smoothest opener that we've seen thus far. I don't know if you've seen this in the last few attempts there, Amelia, but a few interesting unracks. Very aggressive out of the rack and almost a little bit jarring, kind of banging into it on the way up. I'm just wondering again whether this is an adjustment to the different bench, and not just the pad, but maybe the hooks as well.
Yeah, well, I have seen so far this championships a couple of lifters get a little stung by clipping the rack and then having to adjust to set up a little further down. So that absolutely could be the case. Karen Skovlin now from Denmark, 92.5, came out with a 15 kilo personal best and squat, and already 5 kilos below her best on her opening bench. I certainly do think she will be shooting up the ranks by the end of the day.
Yeah, I would expect so too. I'm intrigued to see whether she looks to tick off that 100 kilo bench, but I think this attempt right here will give us some good information on that.
Yeah, very comfortable.
As we say in New Zealand, easy as mate.
I think I can get on board with that for that particular opening attempt. Yeah, really lovely. No issues with elbow depth. Actually, negative depth here it seems for Karen.
Yeah, exactly. I think honestly all day she's been lifting to an extremely high standard, so it's quite pleasurable to watch.
Yeah, she's an enjoyable lifter to watch, and I absolutely think round about that third she's going to go for that huge 100 kilo milestone. And with all lifters getting that bench in on the board, we move through to the second round with Osrine from Lithuania with 67.5. Just a soft 2.5 kilo jump here, but it would be a personal best. So, don't underestimate that 2.5 kilo jump, especially if the opener felt a little tougher. Yeah, and that'll be why.
Yeah, I think the first attempt was a little bit awkward, and I guess we sit here and we hope that it is just a bit of a technical breakdown, or like we talked about multiple times, an adjustment to the pad. But I just think after that second attempt there, that possibly verifies that it was just a little bit heavy for the day.
And that does open the question of where to go from there. And let's hope that's not the case for Tanja Kohonen from Finland, who's taken the same jump, also matching her personal best. And the opener was a little bit tough, but we'll see how this works out for her.
Yeah, also a bit of an awkward opener, so this one's going to be quite interesting. Yeah, that was interesting to me because honestly I nodded my head halfway through and then she just kind of lost it forward. Again, just kind of pressing it away from her. It's a very interesting kind of bench. It looked like she had it and then just kind of just got away from it for whatever reason. I genuinely think she has the capacity to press that. It's just whether she can get the technique right for it, in my opinion. But obviously when it is quite heavy, like your tolerance for technique is very, very slim.
Yeah, particularly with the change in bench. Kurtzlava, 75 kilos here for Georgia. Again, bullies it up. It is tough, but she gets it. 3 white lights, and we knew the first 3 openers we saw were a little tough, so I think we anticipated the second would reflect that, and it does beg the question of where to go here, there, and the third.
Yeah, I think that was, there's only really one option after the Georgian lifters second, in my opinion, which is just a humble 2.5 kilo jump, and I think she could be good for it. But right now we have Czechia with 77.5 kilograms, which is an equal personal best for Christina.
Yeah, seeing, unfortunately, a lot of misses in the second round of bench press for these ladies, and perhaps 5 kilos just a bit over ambitious.
Yeah, the first was good. We had the 1 red, I think, for bench depth on the first one. It's hard to say whether she tried to compensate for that or not, but regardless, like a 5 kilo jump at these sort of weights is a very high percentage. And I think we just saw the byproduct of that. And I do wonder in these sort of situations whether the jump again is too jarring. So I have hope that she can come back and get it.
Lara Jakuti Dimet from Malta, 85 kilos, opting for a 2.5 kilo jump to match her personal best here. Another factor which will be impacting them, especially after some difficult openers, is actually the flights moving extremely quickly. Yeah, a bit of trouble with that AMRAC there too.
Good attempt though for Laura, and I like the jump there. Just taking the 2.5. I think like the opener moved really well, but I think they understand that even a 2.5 kilo jump can make quite a bit of difference. So really good attempt selection there. And up next we have Caroline from Denmark. Caroline's lifting today has been beautiful, as we spoke about earlier, potentially pacing for 100 kilos. So this second attempt here is going to be very telling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably we have the most faith in Caroline's second attempt. So Caroline Skovlin from Denmark here with that 97.5. This is matching her personal best, but when you walk away with a 15 kilo personal best and squat and you move the 92.5 opener the way she did, I'm sat here with full confidence in her abilities.
Yeah, I agree. Really give off confidence if you're already performing like that, right?
Certainly tougher as you'd expect, but it looks good, and it is. And there's really only one place I'd imagine they'd go from here, which is that 100 kilo mark.
Yep, I agree. I think that's really your only option. It was a good, smooth press. I don't think 100 is going to be easy.
No, not out of reach, but certainly it will be extremely top end if it's reflected on that second. And as we head into that third round, 50% of our lifters in this flight didn't make their second attempt, and all seemed like strength issues. So let's see if we can't be proven wrong here. Ozreen Janulukait from Lithuania, 67.5, and just couldn't press it off her chest last time round. Looks a lot different this time round.
Ooh, 2-1. She gets that. Just a blue on the side there, which I would assume is for downward movement of the bar on the ascent. So let's see if we can see that from this angle here.
Yeah, and the bar can go up at different times, which seems like what happened there, but it just can't dip. So I think she should be okay with that.
Yeah, it looks like the jury is happy with it, which is honestly a great outcome. Good to come back from that.
And let's hope the following lifters can follow suit, with Tanya Kohonen looking to retake that 72.5 for a match personal best.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see this one. I do think based on the second she has the capacity for it, but it is definitely top end, so see if she can execute.
The thing is with bench, it's so technical that one slight change really can completely change how it moves.
Yeah, it can be very volatile.
Wow, that is an incredible fight from Kohonen. Yeah, and it is a good lift, really white lights. And I think I saw you shaking your head a little bit in concern because it was a bit of a tough touch on the chest.
That was a journey, that lift. She kind of just, she took it down with a lot of confidence, but it bobbled a little bit, which eventuated into a longer press call, and then it stopped about 3 times on the way up. But she's a newer lifter. She's 1 year competing, so I think sometimes we see this with these fresher lifters. But hey, great result in my opinion.
Yeah, I think a good way to summarize that is very well earned.
Yeah, definitely.
Kristina Vakova now. Let's see if she can follow suit. The previous 2 lifters who missed their second attempt have got them on the board. 77.5 for Kristina Vakova. Match personal best. Let's hope seeing Kohonen gave her some confidence. And it seems to have at least a little bit. Yeah, I did think she might get that depth call from the centre, and maybe she was trying to adjust slightly on that second attempt. It's why she wasn't able to press it.
For me, that looks within scope of the rules. See, the jury is still deliberating on it.
And while we keep one eye on the jury, we'll keep our other on Katja Kurtsalava from Georgia, jumping 2.5 kilos here for a 2.5 kilo personal best. The jury has overruled the previous lift, unfortunately for Vakova.
Yeah, I think that one surprises me a little bit. Amelia, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. They must have seen something, and it seems like they've overruled it for a blue card as well.
Interesting.
Lara Chakuti Dimet from Malta, 87.5 kilos for a new personal best.
Just another 2.5 kilo jump here from Laura. Second attempt was good. See if, again, her massive amounts of support from the crowd can get her over the line.
That is a great fight there from Lara.
That's a beautiful third attempt. I think they played that perfectly. She had a little bit of a tough squat on her second, took probably a bit more of a jump than she should have taken on the third. And I think they've just adjusted perfectly well on the bench press and found exactly the top end. So good play to the Maltese coaching team.
And our final bench press attempt before we head through to the 93s. Caroline Skovlind going for that 100 kilo milestone here. 97.5 was a little bit tough, but with a bit of a fight here, it's well within her wheelhouse, but it will be tough. She'll have to use every ounce of power.
Yeah, I mean, what a milestone, right? 100 kilos. It's a good bench for anybody that walks this planet, so hopefully Caroline can tick that off right now.
No, unfortunately, shakes her head, take it. Better to fail quickly than push through and risk injury, but I think that right side was just not looking to go up.
Yeah, didn't want to really play ball, did it? Yeah, it's no other option from 97.5. Effectively, she doesn't miss out on any kilos, so hopefully she's still holding her head high going into deadlifts.
Absolutely. And with that, we conclude the bench for the 69 kilo C group as we head through to the 93 kilo C group. And kicking us off, we have Gabriel Visek from Croatia, 150 kilos in the bar. Pretty smooth opening attempt there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the word that we've used to describe his lifting all day. So it's like the trend continues.
Rafael Betsis from Greece, 150 kilos. And usually I would say more than anywhere you'd want to see the bench openers comfortable, smooth, and we won't have too much to say about it. But there's been certain cases this championships where that hasn't been so. So I hope that is the case here for the 93s.
Well, even in this session so far, right? Saw a few awkward openers in the women's session. So hopefully the men can have a bit of a less stressful time would be nice for them.
Yeah, so is the case for Betsis there with a good opening attempt, 3 white lights. Ugandali from Malta, 155 kilos. 220. Good lift. The yellow from the side referee. If we have that side angle in the replay, we might be able to see any sort of lift that side referee might have seen. A yellow can be a whole collection of different things on bench press.
That makes me wonder, because of the extra sink in the bench press there, whether that is potentially the new rule in which the upper body thrust is not allowed. Obviously, it's very early doors for that rule, so it's interesting to see how that would be implemented, but the jury's happy with it.
Yeah, I think the way they described it is the chest position shouldn't change after the press command, so I think he's okay. He's still allowed to sink. Ian Pace there with 155.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks fine to me. I think there was no real obvious change in position at the bottom, and I guess at the, like coming through the press as well, so he should be fine. But it's going to be interesting to see how that is refereed over the course of the year, to be honest. Hopefully we get an idea of some precedent around it.
And that is a good lift, 3 white lights as we move through to Erdas Klimka from Lithuania. 160 kilos.
The body's loaded.
Just 10 kilos less than his PB. Eurydice walked away with 2 squats, so hopefully he can come away with 3 bench presses. Yeah, a little bit rough on that opening attempt. Nothing, he doesn't look overly happy with it, if I'm honest. Seems to be a bit dejected by that, which is understandable.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it's on the board because, you know, at least now is a little less pressure moving forward. Of course, he wants to get those second and third attempts, but he knows that at the very least he's got that opener.
Yeah, he's just opted to take a 5 kilo jump, which I think is smart. You know, in these sort of situations, you would expect that he was hoping for a little bit more, but sometimes you just have to adjust to the information that you're given on the day.
Bastien Georges from Belgium, 160 kilos for his opening attempt. Yeah, and similar to his squats, moving really quite nicely.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of a fight yet from Bastien. I think we might be having a little bit of a technical difficulty at the moment with the lights, so apologies if they're not popping up in the time frame that they usually are. But that was a good lift from Bastien, so we'll do our best to keep you informed whether these lifts are good or not.
Rudy Starch now from Slovenia, up an ultimate opening attempt. Both attempts remaining from Team Slovenia here. Personal best of 185.
There must be something in the water in Slovenia. Gives you a big bench. All that mountainous water. Gotta be good for you.
Another really nice looking attempt there.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest with you, I can't help but think that that is the exactly how you want a bench press opener to look. And that's 3 white lights for our Team Slovenia there.
Yeah, I'd say both Rudy and Bastien with some of the nicest openers we've seen in this flight.
Yeah, I would agree.
The body's loaded for Slovenia.
And let's hope with the biggest bench of the flight and the biggest total and prognosis as well. The same can be said for Matej Grilc here, also from Slovenia, opening with 190, personal best of 200.5 kilos. Again, another big milestone bench there, 200.
Yeah, bouncing on the platform, so someone's fired up about bench press. Can't say I feel the same, but hey, good on them. And you can see why he's pumped up about that. With a bench press like that, I would be too.
And his 3 white lights, a good lift. Yeah, and plenty left in the tank with the biggest opener and one of the best moving, I would have to say.
Yeah, I think he's pretty far out in terms of prognosis on this flight. In this flight, sorry.
Yeah, and I'd be super interested, again, similar to some of the ladies that we saw earlier, to see amongst the full rankings at the end of the day with 3 flights to go where he lands in that.
Yeah, it's always really interesting, right? We had a scenario on Tuesday, I think it was, where one of the 57s,
Georgian lifter
from the B flight, ended up in 3rd place on the podium.
Gabriel Visek, 155 for his second attempt.
Honestly, I hate to be too repetitive here, but the word smooth once again comes to mind. The 3 white lights there for Croatia.
Rafael Betsis from Greece, 5 kilo jump here to 155. Fairly conservative jump from Visek and Betsis, but like we said, some of the openers were a little tougher adjusting to that, adjusting to competing, maybe some nerves. Yeah, and it certainly seemed like the right move. I'm a little worried about that bar as we look for the lights from the referees. Again, still facing a couple of difficulties.
2 to 1.
But it's 2 to 1. We're not exactly sure what the no lift, well, not the no lift, but the
yeah,
is for.
I think it was 2 to 1, a good lift, and I do think that it was for potential downwards movement, but referees seem happy enough with that as they move forward into Jürgen Daly, 162.5.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough attempt, but I think it was ultimately the right call.
Still looking pretty strong there, and yeah, he has got a sink, but he certainly doesn't change his body position after getting that press command, so he should be fine with that.
Yeah, 2 to 1 again, I think, probably for the reason that you just spoke about, Amelia, but thus far the lift will stand. This jury is having a look at it. Seem to be okay with it.
Eridas Klimka, 165, 5 kilo jump here.
Yeah, his opener was tough, so we'll see how this one goes. Yeah, unfortunately not quite there on the bench press today for the Lithuanian lifter. Bench press is always an interesting one, Amelia, because we're very subject to the calls when the hands go down, when we have to start the lift. And it's the one lift where you're actually in contact with like a piece of equipment that's not the bar. So there's a lot of variability that can come into play from training to competition. So sometimes it can be hard to adjust.
Yeah, it's the most commands. There are the most technical fouls you can pick up on bench press as well. And it's, arguably the most technical lift as well. So there's so much that goes into it. Ian Pace now from Malta, 165, a 10 kilo jump, and just half a kilo below his personal best.
Yeah, very smooth second attempt there from the Maltese lifter.
Yeah, really nice. And, is starting to forget how good a second attempt could move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think just to come back to our conversation before surrounding the bench press, I think for me personally, I often feel as though if you can replicate what you do in the gym on the platform, especially at an international meet, I think you're doing really well. Whereas like potentially in the squat or the deadlift, we tend to see most people go above and beyond what they have done in training.
Yeah, and the international stage isn't always the place that you're pushing for personal bests. It's, getting the biggest total you can in that environment, with all of the different variables that include. Bastian George is now 170, a 10 kilo jump, and looking very strong today so far. Wow.
Yeah, not much resistance there.
A very difficult reader to lift because he's lifting so well and he comes off with such a straight face. I think he knows, still 4 lifts left to go for the day.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I can't help but think potentially they are keeping things a little bit more conservative just because of his age, and I think personally that's extremely smart. Just put him into an environment that's maybe a little bit more stressful, build some confidence in that, and walk away just with a good experience. So when you come back to these events in the future, you have those like positive connotations with this sort of event, and then you can just look to build. I mean, dude's 20, he's got so many more years in his lifting career.
Rudy Starch, Slovenia, 175, 7.5 kilo jump. It's a very good looking second attempt. And 2 to 1, a good lift. We don't have the colors of those lights at the moment, but I'm wondering again if it was a similar story in terms of the position here at the bottom and changing it. I don't think he's using that thrusting.
Yeah, no, if I had to guess, Amelia, I would say that was for butt lift. And
okay.
I think that they are going to overturn that. We actually have a camera here that I can just spy on, and I could see a little bit of light coming through in that camera that we have. I don't know if it showed on the replay.
No, we didn't get that on the replay, but the jury has overruled it to a no lift there for Starch.
Yeah, and I think that was almost certainly for butt lift.
Matic Gulch, Slovenia, 200 kilos, our final second attempt here, and just half a kilo below his personal best. Big second bench here for Gulch. Big effort there. Let's wait for those lights. It is 3 white lights, a good lift, and
yeah, I think that was good. I can't help but look at the foot position there. I think it's you're pushing the rule of having your feet as flat as possible. I think he's quite on the inside of his foot, but hey, obviously the referees are happy with it, and they know much more than I do. But I think it's an interesting way to set up, and obviously 200 kilo bench press is pretty impressive.
We move into the third and final round of bench. We have the results as they stand currently, those subtotals, but those numbers won't seem to matter all too much in terms of overall rankings until we've seen all 3 groups later today. Rafael Betsis from Greece, 157.5, opting for that sensible 2.5 kilo jump if you feel like you're towards that top end. And it certainly was the right call, but it was just still a little too heavy today.
Yeah, honestly, I think he executed that perfectly. They're just a bit heavy, and sometimes it be that way. I'm interested to hear what you think, Amelia, potentially about how the Slovenian lifters put in 202.5, and I'm wondering whether that might hold up in terms of a medal position. I'm assuming that's something that they might be hoping for. Obviously, there's a lot of lifting to go between now and when that's decided, but it's interesting to see what these lifters might do in terms of trying to get an individual medal as well.
Gabriel Visek from Croatia, 160 to match his personal best in his final attempt. We certainly do see it sometimes, lifters from B and even the C group grab individual medals, but they've got a big climb ahead of them.
Yeah, just a little bit unfortunate there for Gabriel. I thought 5 was ambitious in terms of the jump.
Yeah.
But as we've spoken about multiple times, his lifting's been pretty smooth all day, but just a little bit too much there, unfortunately.
And the body's loaded for Lithuania.
Looking to retake 165 here. Eridas Klimka from Lithuania.
Yeah, it was seemingly a strength issue on the second. He walked off after the first, shaking his head, so hopefully the stars align here.
Yeah, it's just a bit too heavy, and I'm a little worried he met that press command a little quickly as well in a hope that it'd feel a little easier.
Well, it's an interesting strategy. We like to phrase that one as anticipating the press call. Sometimes, when you're in the situation such as himself, the gas is not necessarily in the tank. Sometimes you just go, well, I'm gonna anticipate when it comes up and hope for the best, because you might think that there's no way that it's going to come up otherwise.
Listen, occasionally it does work out. It's not the strategy I would bank on unless you really have to, but very occasionally it works out in the lifter's favour. Jürgen Daly from Malta, 2.5 kilo jump for a match personal best of 165 kilos.
See what they say.
And 3 white lights, a good lift. Oh no, a blue from the centre referee. We have a look here in the replay. The downwards movement, I think that just little wobble in the middle there. What do you reckon, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's extremely close. If I'm sitting on the jury, which I wouldn't be, I would probably be going for benefit of the doubt to the lifter. It seems as though that's the way that they are going for that one, which is great to see.
That's the way they're encouraged to go, if in doubt, favour the lifter.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what happened there, which is it's really nice to see. Sometimes, a bit of lateral movement back and forth can actually, from our angle, make it look a little bit more down than it is. So, yeah, nice to see that benefit of the doubt there.
Ian Pace now 170 on the bar, 5 kilo jump for 4.5 kilo personal best. That is a great effort, and I don't know if I saw the bar dipped. I don't think I did, but let's see what the referee seems to think. No, and they didn't either. 3 white lights, a good lift and a tremendous effort.
Yeah, these Maltese lifters are doing a great job of finding the top end there on bench. That was perfect. I mean, I think that's exactly where you want to be and finish off, and he'll be walking away, going into the deadlift, feeling pretty pumped.
Rudy starts 175, looking to retake this now on his final attempt.
Yeah, it was a bit of an awkward one on the second. Like, it moved really, really well. Just unfortunate to have a little bit of a butt lift there. So hopefully he can make the necessary adjustments, keep the leg drive a little bit more consistent throughout the movement. Again, this could be an adjustment to a change in bench pad as well.
Yeah, and he got it the first time round. The jury just overruled that here. So hopefully picks it up on his final attempt. And again, it moves well. If we get side angle on that replay, we can see if it's better. It is 3 white lights, a good lift. So
I did think that was much better this time. So a great adjustment. That's not always an easy thing to do, especially when there's pressure, right? So yeah.
And you can see it gets very close to lifting there. So just a small change and a big result. Penultimate bench press here. Bastien Georges from Belgium, 177.5, a 7.5 kilo jump for a 5 kilo personal best. Like you said before, we've not seen too much resistance or work from him so far, or at least it's not appeared that way.
Yeah, I'm honestly quite intrigued to see how this one goes, because a 7.5 kilo jump's pretty bold, but again, we thought the same about his third squat.
Yeah, and same story as we've seen all day from him. A lovely final attempt and a good lift.
Yeah, just again, super conservative for Bastien. And yeah, he's just really building. I honestly think he's a lifter to keep an eye out on.
And final bench press is loaded up for Matej Gilt from Slovenia. A 202.5 kilo bench press. Here, a 2 kilo personal best, should he get this?
Yeah, the second was a little bit on the shakier side, hence why he's opted for a 2.5 kilo jump. Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how this goes.
Great final press there from Matej.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I think he's a little bit honestly, a bit upset about that one. It seems as though he knew that he was probably good for a little bit more and maybe lacked a bit of execution on the second. And yeah, I think we saw that execution on the third.
Yeah, I think 202 was the number for today, but you know, he should still walk away pretty chuffed with the day he's had so far and pushing into deadlifts, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to head into a 10-minute break now before pushing into deadlifts for the 69 and 93 B groups. We'll see you there. And welcome back to the 2026 European Open Classic Powerlifting Championships here in St. Julian's, Malta, as we head into the deadlift event for the 69 kilo and 93 kilo C groups. We'll have the B groups to follow at 2:30 local time, and then the A group this evening at 5:30 local time for Eurosport. And we head now into the deadlifts, where actually we see lifters from both groups who probably will climb up the ranks there, Jason.
Yeah, I think seen some very good lifting thus far. We're absolutely flying through this session. It was a 11 kickoff, was it?
Yeah, an hour and 40, and we're already into deadlifts.
Yeah, I think it's been very well run thus far, and everything's been going very smoothly. And I am also intrigued to see how some of these lifters stack up against the lifters in the B and the A flight later on today. But first up we have Lithuania with 137.5.
Austrian Janukikate from Lithuania here. 5 kilos above her personal best.
Three white lights. Pretty smooth opening. Yeah, I think with the deadlift we probably expect to see less infractions, generally less rules in the deadlift, so hopefully we can get through most of these attempts without any failures, especially anything technically.
Lara Chetkuti Demet from Malta, 152.5. Yeah, and you certainly hope that to be the case, especially in this opening deadlift where they're looking to secure their total.
Yeah, when you come into the deadlift at this point, you've already done a heavy squat, or multiple heavy squats, multiple heavy benches, so you don't want to gas yourself out too early on in the deadlifts. So we'll see how this one goes here from Laura. Yeah, I think that was a good attempt. I'm very intrigued to see, if we watch here in the replay, how her lifts progress. Kind of see she throws her head back a reasonable amount, which can displace a bit of her weight behind the bar. Sometimes it can lead to a little bit of a hitching pattern. Very hard to say early on, but something that I'll be definitely keeping an eye out for.
Kristina Vakova from Czechia, 157.5 for her opening attempt.
Pretty comfortable opening. Very white lights.
From Denmark. 107 kilos.
Caroline Skovlind from Denmark, 170. Just narrowly missed out on that 100 kilo bench, but as we said before, a huge personal best on the squat. This is 12.5 below her personal best on the deadlift, so looking really strong and charging the pack in this group. Slow and steady, strong looking open attempt.
Yeah. Again, smooth. A little bit more work at the top than I would anticipate. What sort of jump would you expect to see there, Amelia?
It's hard to say, not knowing, how she is specifically as a lifter, but perhaps looking for a 10 kilo increase there, just below her personal best. What would you say?
Yeah, I'd say 7.5 to 10.
Katja Kurtslava from Georgia, 172.5, and already a 2.5 kilo personal best.
Yeah, another good opening attempt. Still a little bit of work, maybe like just a little bit more work than I would like to see, but hard to say.
Yeah, and some lifters just are slow all the way throughout. I think a lot will be told in the second round of deadlifts for us.
Yeah, I think we're seeing, especially the last two lifters from Georgia and Denmark, some very proficient squatters, and sometimes we'll often see them be a little bit slower in the deadlift, not necessarily
The bar is loaded for
weaker,
freestyle.
but their leverages might be a little bit more advantageous in the squat, and therefore, we're not going to see as smooth of a attempts in the deadlift. But hey, maybe we'll see some decent jumps and some faster attempts on the second and third.
And our final opening attempt here, Tanya Kohonen from Finland, 187.5, just 2.5 kilos below her personal best. And it looks good for it.
If there's anything that's guaranteed in the sport, it's always going to be a Finnish lifter pulling last. An easy opening attempt there. So expect to see quite a bit more from her, and I would anticipate going over probably 200 kilos.
And we're straight through to the second round of deadlifts with all 6 ladies securing their total. And so pressure is off a little bit here, where they know that they can continue to add kilos without the pressure of losing that overall total. Alserine from Lithuania here with 145. I believe this is her current personal best. Yeah, and it looks about the same as that opening attempt, actually.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. 3 white lights. I'd be interested to see where they go after that one, but plus 7.5 didn't really add too much extra resistance. One would think probably around that sort of 150, 152 and a half mark. But yeah, a really good second attempt.
And a 12.45 kilo jump from the opener.
Laura Chikuti Dimech, 165, a 12.5 kilo jump here for a 2.5 kilo personal best. Definitely tougher than that opener, and yeah, I think that's what you were a little bit worried about there, Jason.
Yeah, it just seems that Laura tends to lean back quite a lot, and often when you put a lot of your upper body weight behind the bar, the knees kind of have to come forward to compensate, which can get you in a position where you are supporting the weight on the thighs, unfortunately. I honestly think, clearly she has a strength for it, so if she can just adjust that head position, then, wow.
And the jury's overruled that to a good lift, so not so much so that they're too concerned about it, but I certainly imagine on that third, like you said, you have to keep an eye out. Kristina Vakova, 167.5 kilos for Czechia here.
Yeah, that was a good second attempt. Yeah, just to come back to the lift being overturned to a good lift, I think that's a really interesting one. Often we don't see that with the supporting on the thighs, but I think obviously the jury there have a very good view of that, being able to see a little bit more from the side, and one of the calls was from the front. So I think they're happy with how she executed that lift, which is obviously good for her.
Katja Kurtslava from Georgia, a 5 kilo jump here. New personal best, so perhaps already feeling a little close to that top end. Yeah, and it's a slow lockout, but she does get there.
Yeah, we spoke about her. It's a good lift, 3 white lights. We spoke about her opener being a little bit on the tougher side. I thought maybe she'd take about 7.5, but I think based on what we just saw there, I think that was a very good attempt.
Yeah, you want to pace yourself with keeping in mind you have 2 lifts to go, not just seeing as much as you can get out of that second. Caroline Skovlind from Denmark taking a 12.5 kilo jump, looking to match her personal best here of 182.5 on her second.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how this goes. Again, this is one of the ones we spoke about being a little bit stickier, but perhaps that's just how she pulls, and I think we're about to find out whether that is the case.
very similar to that opening attempt, and she seemed extremely pleased to match that personal best in her second, as she should.
Yeah, she's definitely psyched about that one. I kind of wonder maybe whether she did think that first was like a little bit off, maybe a bit slower, and I think that second just confirmed that she does have the strength for it today, which is great to see, because honestly that kind of looked very similar to the opener.
Our final second attempt here, Tanja Korhonen from Finland, also jumping 12.5 kilos, looking for a 10 kilo personal best and a milestone of 200 here on her second attempt. And with 1 year competitive experience, very, very impressive. Oh, it's tough. She does manage to get to lockout. And it is a good lift. How much more do you reckon is in the tank there, though, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think 5. I don't think it's complete top end. It's definitely flying pretty close to the sun.
Yeah.
The celebration afterwards suggests that she's pretty happy with that, which is great.
Yeah, it's a huge milestone to hit there with 200.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting thing when that happens on the second attempt, because it can go both ways, right? It can put you in a really good mood and you feel good for your third, or sometimes you've kind of played your final already, you go on your third and you're like, oh, whatever happens, happens. So
yeah, and you know, you take it off, and sometimes you want to go that, athletes want to go for that on their second, so they have the chance, if they need it, to go for it twice. 150 kilos for the final attempt of Osrine Jalinkikate. And it's looked the same really for all 3 attempts, and it is a good lift.
yeah, I think that was a really, really good attempt selection. She had a bit of a tough time in the bench press, only getting 1. So to come, did she only get 1? I think so. Or maybe she came back for it on the third, but a bit of a tough time in the bench press regardless. So to come back and have a good deadlift series is always a nice way to finish the day.
Loretta Kuti-Demech, 172.5 for the Maltese lifter, 7.5 kilo jump for a new personal best.
Yeah, so originally it was 2-1 no lift on her second, and it got overturned to a good lift for hitching, or not hitching on her second attempt. So let's see how that goes for her third attempt here. She's actually added 7.5 kilos to the bar.
Tough, and she does a great job to keep it moving, but the lockout is sticky, and I'm just not sure she can get her hips through. No, just a bit too much today, unfortunately.
It's an extremely valiant effort though. You gotta give her credit for that. She's a bit upset about it, but I think she can hold her head pretty high after that attempt. Literally.
Kristina Vakova, Czechia, having the bar loaded to 175 for an equal personal best in her final attempt. Getting it very close to that total of 400 here, 392.5 if she's to make this.
Yeah, her second attempt was good. I think this will be some work, but I back the attempt selection. She wants a little bit of a hype from the crowd. Yeah, that was a beautiful attempt. Honestly, I've been very impressed with Czechia's attempt selection over the course of this week thus far, and it seemed to be growing really well as a coaching team.
180 kilos of bar, new personal best. The bar is loaded for Georgia.
Katja Katslava from Georgia, 180, looking for a 2.5 kilo jump here in Yeah, the 177.5 did look like she was getting towards that top end. So just looking to squeeze a couple extra kilos out here if she can. Really great job from Katia. What a day she's had.
Yeah. Again, you know, I want to give some credit to the Georgian team there for their attempt selection. You know, you would assume based on the fact that they opened at 172.5 that they were hoping for a little bit more, but they adjusted really well to the day, and ultimately they ended up with the limit. And at the end of the day, that's all you can do. As we come up here for our penultimate attempt of the 69C class with Caroline from Denmark.
Yeah, 187.5 kilos for Caroline Skovlind here. 5 kilo jump. Super impressive. This would leave her the 470, which is, you know, a big total and certainly much higher than the rest of the C group here.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that lands her at the end of the day.
Oh, it's a lovely third attempt from Carolyn. A new personal best, a good lift.
Yeah, that was perfect. I think, you know, she had a near perfect day going 8 for 9, just only missing a 2.5 kilo jump on her bench press, so ultimately getting as much as she could there. Yeah, really good day, and she kind of proved us wrong a little bit in the deadlift. Her open was a little bit rough, and she came through really well on her second and third attempts. So, yeah, interesting, like we spoke about, to see where she lands at the end of the day. For now, we have Tanya from Finland with 207.5 kilos, taking a 7.5 kilo jump.
Big final deadlift, hit that 200 kilo milestone on the second. Looking to add 7.5 more onto that for a 435 total. Yeah, and I think 7.5 may be a little over ambitious today, but what a day she's had otherwise.
Yeah, I thought that was potentially a little bit ambitious as well, but like we spoke about, on her second attempt she was so stoked with 200, so I'm sure she'll be walking away after only 1 year's competing and be pretty happy with what she's put together today.
And that concludes the 69 kilo C group with Kohonen leading the deadlifts there. Subject to change, we're going to see the medals taken most likely from the A group, maybe some shooters from the B group, but we're going to head immediately into the 93 kilo C group here. And kicking us off, we'll have Ian Pass from Malta, 242.5 for his opening attempt.
Representing Malta. First attempt.
Good comfortable opener there from Ian. Blue white lights.
Up next, Bastian Georges, 250 kilos for his first attempt.
Bastian Georges now having quite the day. Nice conservative opener here with 250 with a personal best 282.5. I can't imagine this will offer him any resistance based on how we've seen him lift today.
No, I expect this to be pretty comfortable.
And there it is.
Yeah, very easy opener there. I would expect probably at least plus 20 on that, based on their way they've been pacing thus far.
Yeah, it'd be certainly interesting to see the jumps they choose to make. Like you said, based on the pacing we've seen so far.
Yeah, and usually in the deadlift you do expect to see slightly bigger jumps than you would in the squat for the bench press. So, yep, there we go. 20 kilos up to 270 for his second attempt.
Rudy Starch, Slovenia, 255 kilos in the bar. It's well worth having a slightly conservative opener to secure that total and make those jumps if you can. A good lift, 3 white lights.
Yeah, I think so far what we've seen is pretty much what you would come to expect from deadlift openers, so hopefully that trend continues. Just looking a little bit further towards tonight, Amelia, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to in that A flight with the 69s and the 93s?
Jürgen Daly from Malta, 260 for his opening attempt. Yeah, I mean, there are going to be some great fights. We've obviously got Christian Aydokin in the 93s who's favourite to win, but the 69s is really an open battle between 4 lifters, and I really think that's not going to be something you're going to want to miss. It's very, very close, just kilos separating those top ladies. Wow, very comfortable opener, and you'd expect that when he pulls north of 300 kilos. It's a good lift.
Yeah, it was a very comfortable opener. But yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see what Christian does.
Yeah.
I know that he probably have his focus a little bit more on Worlds later on in the year in June.
Yeah.
However, his training has been looking amazing. So I'm very intrigued to see that. And like you said, I think the real highlight of the evening is going to be the under 69 ladies. There's a real cluster there in the top 4, which I think is going to be very intriguing to see how that pans out.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Norway versus France versus Ireland versus the Netherlands. It will be very, very exciting. Aridas Klimka, Lithuania, 270. And that is a good lift.
Yeah, I think he'll be happy with that. That was a very comfortable opener. He had a bit of a tough time in the bench press, missing his second and his third. So always nice to get an easy opening deadlift in after that sort of situation. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how it goes. I think my brain says probably Norway. Marta's experience is just invaluable here. I know we've got Anderina coming through from the juniors. Marie Jose from the Netherlands is also definitely up and coming at the moment, not too far out of the juniors, and then obviously Jordan Bright as well. So yeah, I'm honestly, I can't wait for that one.
Matic Gilch from Slovenia, 272.5, and yep, before I can even finish the number, he's finished the lift. It's a good lift. Yeah, it's definitely Marta's to lose, in a sense of, she's won before and she's up there at the top of the nominations, but that adds the pressure of being chased by 3 very, very strong ladies.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the brain says that the experience will pull through here, but honestly it's one of these situations where you get a miss, something gets overturned, then all of a sudden the stakes change completely. So
I'll expect to see you in the crowd then.
Oh mate, I'll be all over that one. That's what I've come for. No, I'm honestly extremely excited for that.
280 for Gabriel Vizek from Croatia. Again, another puller capable of plus 300 kilos. But this should be a nice comfortable opening attempt.
Yeah, very, very comfortable opener there for Gabriel. 32.5 kilos less than his best, so you would expect as such. So I'm intrigued to see the jumps that they take there, and whether that results in a personal best or not.
Bar is loaded for the heaviest opener of the day, Rafael Betsis.
And our final opening attempt here from Greece, we have Rafael Betsis, 285 kilos. And 3 white lights, a good lift. That is all 8 on the board with their total.
Yeah, honestly, not really too much to report after the openers there. I think they were all as they should be. You would expect to plan, which is a good thing. We have a clean slate thus far, and hopefully that's also the case for the second round.
And I think we'll see a good amount of lifters by the time we hit that third round in 300s. Ian Patch from Malta, 252.5 kilos, a 10 kilo jump. And it seems like the centre referee and far side referee not happy that he held it quite until he got the down command.
Yeah, the yellow light there would definitely indicate that he put the weight down before he was given the down command. Perhaps the bar was just settling a little bit funny in his hand, and sometimes the referee will make you hold it a little bit longer as a byproduct of seeing that, because they want to be, want to be sure that you are able to hold on to the bar, and it looks like that decision from the referees will upstand.
Thing is, if the centre referee says they haven't met the command that they gave, the jury have to trust that the centre referee knows when they gave the command.
Yeah, it's very hard to overturn that situation.
270 for Rudi Stac from Slovenia.
Three white lights. I do think, based on what we just saw there also, maybe we are in a position where we might expect to see some slightly longer holds. The head ref just kind of making the decision that, they want to be sure of the bar being held securely in their hands, which I'm a fan of, to be honest.
Bastian Georges taking that 20 kilo jump that you mentioned here to 270.
Yeah, comfortable second attempt there. Expect to see something north of that 282.5 kilo PB that he has currently.
Jürgen Dahle from Malta taking also a 20 kilo jump here to 280 for his second attempt.
Yeah, I definitely think this was the quickest opener that we saw. So a 20 kilo jump does not surprise me whatsoever. I'm quite intrigued to see what results of that.
A little scrappier, but definitely still moving well there for Jürgen.
Yeah, a very intriguing second attempt. Let's have a look here again on the replay. Yeah, it's just a little bit awkward off the floor. He kind of has that sort of grab and go style, which sometimes can cause that. I think the strength is there, so we'll see what sort of attempt they put in for the third.
Iridas Klimka here, 285 kilos for the Lithuanian athlete, matching his personal best on the second. Certainly tougher, but does a really good job of keeping the bar moving.
Yeah, a bit of work. I would like to think that a PB is on the cards for today. I think probably around sort of 290 mark makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be going much further than that, but we'll see what they put in. Obviously, they've got a lot more information than we do.
Matej Gurt from Slovenia, 290 kilos, and the clock is ticking down. And he's yet to come out, but I think just hopefully getting himself hyped up in the holding area.
Yeah, I don't know if you've realised or picked up on that, but we have seen Matej doing a bit of that today. He seems to be giving himself at least 15 to 20 seconds of clock time before he comes out. Strategic, not sure. Maybe he's just waiting for the drop in his song. But yeah, pretty comfortable 10th there for Matej. He looks happy with it as well. I think with the previous best of 297.5, one would think perhaps 300 is on the cards for today.
That'd be a very good milestone to hit on this platform.
Speaking of 300 kilos.
There we go. Gabriel Visic from Croatia, a 20 kilo jump to hit that 300 kilo milestone, one he has hit before with a personal best of 312.5 kilos.
Yeah, another 20 kilo jump here.
If this moves well, perhaps looking to push that personal best slightly up on that third. And it does move extremely well.
Yeah, honestly, quite similar to the opener. I'm intrigued to see where they go after that. Like, I think 315 makes a lot of sense. 2.5 kilo PB.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think that 15 kilo jump is justifiable there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bias swings towards 315. I think maybe more logical is around 312, but I think it's probably worth having a crack. Like we spoke about earlier in these sea flights, a lot of these people will be wanting to come in and have a go at some PBs, and it comes down to what the goals are, right? And if it's more focused on the total, then maybe they'll look to just get that as opposed to the individual PB.
Rafael Bestis, Greece, 302.5 kilos. And it is a good lift, albeit a little bit wobbly. Doesn't matter how he got there, he got there.
Yeah, it was a little bit awkward off the floor. I was just kind of watching him as he came off there to see what sort of body language he was giving off. He didn't seem too bothered by it, so maybe he's confident for another jump there, perhaps up to about 310 or so.
And we move into that third and final round where we'll see a lot of these athletes pushing for those personal bests. Of course, we have the current totals as they stand, with still the B and the A group to come through later, so subject to change. Totals not ultra important in terms of rankings right this second, but a lot of these athletes looking for personal bests. Ian Patch, 262.5, didn't get that second attempt, just got yellows for skipping that down command, has gone up 10 kilos in any case. No, not there today.
Yeah, just a bit unfortunate. If we when we look at the replay here, you'll see that underhand on the right side just open up a little bit, which is what I think the head ref saw on the second attempt and made him hold for a little bit longer. They put everything on the line and said, you know what, we'll have a go at it anyway. Maybe it's PB, maybe there's a certain total that he's trying to get. So respect for that, but just a little bit unfortunate there.
Bar is loaded to 280 kilos for Rudi Starch from Slovenia. 2.5 below his personal best to cap the day off strong.
If successful, this will give him a 707.5 kilo total.
Really fantastic job sticking with that as the legs started shaking. 3 white lights.
Yeah, really, really, really good attempt selection there from Team Slovenia.
282.5 kilos for his third last attempt on the day. The bar is loaded for Bastian.
Now we're yet to see him sweat, and will he on this final attempt of 282.5 for a match personal best? Bastien Georges from Belgium. I don't imagine we will, but what a day he's had.
Yeah, at only 20 years of age, it's been very, very impressive stuff from Bastien.
The most we've seen him work all day, and it really wasn't all too hard.
Yeah, I was just thinking the exact same thing, Amelia.
It's a good lift, strong end to the day.
Yeah, and that ends him up on a 725 kilo total. And as I just mentioned previously, at 20 years old, that's nothing to look past. So definitely one to keep an eye out for in the future.
Aridas Klimka from Lithuania, 292.5 kilos. This is a 7.5 kilo jump. Looking for a personal best here. Let's see how this goes for him. Second was a little bit tough. Let's see if he can find the gas in the tank for one last pull. Looks like he can. That is a fantastic effort from Klimka.
What an attempt. I mean, I thought, honestly, 285 was flying pretty close to the sun, and to slap 7.5 on that and still pull through is very impressive. And you can tell as well in the replay there he's happy with that 7.5 kilo PB, which lands him on a 692.5 kilo total.
297.5 kilos for Jürgen Daly from Malta.
Another big jump here. First to second was 20 kilos, and this is 17.5.
Just starts to lose his grip there. A bit too much on the day, that extra 17.5 kilos.
Yeah, it's a very bold jump from second to third. I mean, look, strength is almost there. I just think the grip wasn't quite there. Unfortunately, kind of gave out on that left side. But yeah, a really good day there for the Maltese lifter.
Three final lifts, all 300 kilos and above, and for the very first time for Matej Gruch from Slovenia, 300 on the bar, a 10 kilo jump from his second attempt.
Again, opting to just run the clock down a little bit here. You do wonder what the potential strategy is with this, but each to their own. I guess it is a pretty short flight, only 8 lifters, and the one prior to that was only 6.
Yeah, just coming out when he is absolutely ready. You know, you only need to start pulling before the time runs out. He still has 30 seconds left to go.
Yeah, the deadlift doesn't take too long to set up.
And he manages to lock it out. I'm wondering how scrappy that was. I think there's a bit of assistance with the bar there, and the lockout not quite sufficient enough for the far side referee either. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I tend to agree with the lack of lockout, and probably also the up down from the front there. It's just there's a little bit of a shaky lift. There's definitely top end, and sometimes those things can happen. He put a lot of energy and hype into this, so sometimes you can have a little bit of a technical fault as a byproduct of that. But then the upside to that is, potentially tapping into a little bit more strength.
310 kilos for Rafael Betsis from Greece, 7.5 kilo jump for a new personal best, and our penultimate lifter of the day. No, just can't break the floor there.
Yeah, firstly, congrats on a great day, but I think, like we said on that the second attempt, it was a bit awkward off the floor, and then it kind of came up well, so we expect to see a little bit of resistance there, and unfortunately it's just a little bit too much for today.
And our final lifter of this morning's session, we have Gabriel Vicek from Croatia, 315 kilos. So we spoke about whether this would be a justifiable jump, and I think, like we said, he loses out on absolutely nothing by going for this personal best. 300 looked really tidy. So strong end to the day, so land him on 725 and second in the C group. And again, just loses out on grip, but valiant effort. And like we said, there was no risk in shooting for that personal best.
Yeah, if we watch this replay nice and closely, you'll see hook grip strike again. Unfortunate, but yeah, a very good day overall, and what a pleasure to commentate with you, Amelia.
Yes, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you'll do it again someday. I hope I didn't scare you off too much here.
Only a little bit.
And we end this morning's session. Those are the results as we can see them, but with the B and the A group to come, lots is to change. So please do join us for the B group for the 69s and the 93s at 2:30 local time in about an hour, and then tonight for the prime time session at 5:30 local time. We'll catch you there.